Hello Internet! We are going to talk more about Niagara 4, oBIX, and Node-RED. Let's get right into it. Here in my Niagara 4 station running on a JACE, I've created a folder called app in the config directory. And I'm going to use this to create all of the standard data types. Boolean writable, a numeric writable, a enum writable, and a string writable. Okay, those are the those are four big ones, and I'm gonna add maybe one other thing. Let's pull this palette open and have a look at. Let's grab current time and maybe one shot. Okay. Okay, so that gives us 6 different objects that we've got in our app directory here. We're gonna just put some values in here. So we'll set our Boolean writable to false. We'll set our numeric to 0. This enum, we're going to need to double click on it and go into these facets and double chevron and dot 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 and double chevron, and here we can actually add some enumerated values. So let's do a standard off on auto, and maybe for good measure one more. Okay. Add that. So we see we get a an ordinal, a tag, and a display for each one of our enumerated values. I'm going to say okay to this, okay to this, okay to this, save, and go back to our app directory. And then we'll set that enum for off. Okay. And here's our string writable. So let's set that to be some value. Hello, Internet. Okay, great. And so current time is just reading the clock off the JACE and spitting it out. Let's just take a look at it. If I double click on it, it has an out slot. Now, let's take a look at this one shot. One shot has an in, a time, an out not. But it also has an action called fire. And just to remind myself, I'm going to pin that slot fire, because we're going to come back to all of this in just a few minutes here, but we needed to get this set up for this demo to work. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to Groovy Gorilla, and here we are in Node-RED. And so when I covered this in a previous video, I made a little flow, and I put it in the description on the video. So look for integration of Node-RED Niagara 4 through oBIX, and then look in the description and you'll see all this JSON. I'm just going to copy it right out of here and paste it into here. Import, clipboard, paste. There we go. And now I've got 2 flows called flow 1, so I'll get rid of this first one. Flow, delete, and deploy. Okay, and I'm not going to do any dashboard stuff today, so I'm just going to get rid of this dashboard node. And it looks like I am getting a suction pressure. That's great, but we're not going to work with suction pressure today, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, now let's just turn this inject so that it is not repeating. And then what am I going to do here? Well, since I'm going to make a whole bunch of nodes, what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this. And I'm going to create a... I'm going to create this function is just going to be to initialize. Initialize variables, okay. So it is not actually going to go and do any of this, but we are going to add a variable to it. And what is that variable going to be? It's going to be operation. And so for this first one, I'm going to just put an empty string. And then what I'm going to do is set all of these into flow variables so that they can be accessible by other nodes in this flow. And here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to use flow.set and then open quotes, and then what we need is the flow variable name, and then comma sets it equal to, and we can just use the variable name. And so then that'll go get this. Actually, I don't need the username and I don't need the password, because what I just need is the auth hash, and I'm just gonna get that flow.set auth hash. And set that to auth hash. Okay, and so that's how you set a flow variable. I know I skipped around a little bit there, so let me just put this up here. And we got to set flow variables for these other ones. I'm going to leave myself a little comment. Set flow variables for use in other nodes on this flow. This just keeps us from having to copy all this and have it in every other node. It makes our flow lighter. IP address, HTTPS port. I'm going to get rid of that too. And I'm just going to say flow set. I'll put those together into a flow variable, and I'm going to call it IP. And what we'll do is we'll just set it to be equal to both of those. So we'll set it to IP address, and then you need a colon in between an IP address and its port number. So we'll add a colon, and then we'll put the HTTPS port, which if you were using Niagara AX, you wouldn't need to use HTTPS, but in Niagara 4 you do. Okay, and then we'll set our flow. Actually, our operation doesn't need to be a flow variable, so we'll leave that out of this. We really just needed the auth hash, which is combining the username and the password into base64 string, so that we don't send usernames and passwords in plain text. And then we needed the destination, so the IP address and the HTTPS port. Okay, now that we've got that, we've initialized these variables, and you can see that that's not wired to anything, so that just loads them into flow variables. And now what we'll do is down here, instead of having that information here, what we're gonna do, and we've now done that in another node. Now what we're gonna do is change this so that instead of looking for a variable that's inside of this node, we're gonna look for a variable that's inside this flow. So flow.get and then IP. So that'll go get the IP address. And what else are we going to need? Oh, this auth hash is going to need to be a flow.get auth hash. Okay. And one last thing we're going to do is we're going to talk a lot about operations. So we're going to add to the end of this ord slot, we're going to add operation. And so I'll put a variable up here and call it operation. Yeah. And for right now, we're not using any operation on this. And let's just test this and make sure it still does the same thing that it used to do. So I'm going to add a debug node out to the end here and just check and see if we still get that suction pressure in our debug pane when I hit this inject. And I get an error, non-white space before tag get oh, you know why? Because I didn't initialize my variables. So let's do that. So I'm going to initialize the variables, and now what I just did will cause all this to be loaded into these flow variables. And now that they're there, when I hit this one, there we go. So we got something back. And what did we get back? We got a real back. That is going to be our first data type that we're going to talk about. When I drill into it, I can see my value is 42.7 and then a whole lot of places after the decimal. And I can see the href referring to where did it get this information, suction pressure out value. Okay. We're going to reuse this string of nodes here, and let's go right into it. So let me just switch back to Workbench, and we'll start with, you know what, since suction pressure was a numeric, let's start with the numeric. And I'm just going to organize these in the order that we are likely to go through them. Okay, so let's start here with this numeric writable. And I need the path of the numeric writable, and it is /app/numeric writable. So let's go back to Node-RED, and I kind of regret copying this already, so I'm going to just delete one of these. And we're going to take this one and go into the ord slot here. And we're going to just change this to /app/numeric writable. Okay. And then let's try this again. Deploy, clear this out. I don't need to hit my initialized variables because they're already initialized. And I get a real back. Now this time, what's the value? The value is 0. Okay, and where did you get this? It got it from app numeric writable. Okay, so this worked to get a numeric. All right, now let's just go through the other data types that we might want to get. I'm going to copy this, and let's get our Boolean writable. Okay. Let's see if that works. Here we go. Yep, and I got a bool back, and its value is false. Okay. So let's call that a successful get Boolean. Okay, and then let's get an enum. So we've got our enum writable. Deploy that. And let's see, what do we get back from that? We get an enum, okay. And what's its value? It's off. Perfect. So we got our enum. Now, how about we try to get a string? So we'll change this to string writable. Deploy that. Clear the debug window. And we get a string back. And what's its value? Hello, Internet. Okay, and then there were two more that I created in that app directory, and let's just take a look at them. So there's current time. All right, we'll do that one. Or I forgot to rename this get string. And we are gonna get app current time this time. Okay, done. And let's see what that gives us. That gives us an object. Now, what's in that object? Now we get a string, real time, or relative time, and absolute time. What's in absolute time? Here is a display that shows the date and the time. Good morning. And the value of that slot is out. Okay, we're going to leave this called get time. Time is kind of special. And let's do the one last one, which was the one shot. Now, the reason I added the one shot wasn't for reading its output, but we're going to read its output anyway. One shot. Okay. Deploy. And let's clear this and check this out. Okay, so the one shot gave me back an object. And in that object, it has string, bool, real time, and operation. And operation is the thing I wanted to get to. That's the reason I put one shot in there. In operation is where we have fire. So for right now, let's just put get one shot. And then let's talk about this for just a little bit. So if I'm gonna go back to, I'm gonna clear this out and we'll go back to our numeric writable. I'm gonna hit the get numeric and I get back this real. And then let's just take a look through the data that I get back. So inside the real object, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. This first one, the $ object, gives me the value, the link. This is, in oBIX, is what's known as the contract, and it lists all after, it lists what it is. So it's a control point, it's a numeric writable, it's a numeric point, it's a oBIX point. So you can find out what something is by looking at its contract, and display the icon that's used, the units. What else? We get this string here, which is probably our facets, and then WS annotation. This is actually the position on the wire sheet in Niagara 4. Ref is going to be our proxy extensions. And here we finally get to real. And now what we're getting is, with these two arrays from 0 to 17, these are all of the available levels of priority. So the first one is our out slot. Then we're at our in one slot, all the way down to our in there's our fallback. So our in1 to in16. And so what is that? If you're not familiar with Niagara, this works this way with BACnet too. You have all these in slots, and they offer multiple levels of priority, so that if something is wired to a higher level priority, it will take precedent. It will override the value coming in on a lower slot. But going back to Node-RED here, if we're just asking that point for its data, we don't really care about all of that information. And what's important to note is that we are going to get all of this information if we're not more specific than this. If when we send our GET request, we just say, hey, give me app numeric writable, we are going to get all of this information back. And that's okay if you need it. And there are times where you do need it, especially like the times when you're trying to look up the contract, which is this is value. And we're going to go into why are you going to need to look up the contract in just a minute here. But when you are only pulling the value, then what you really want to do is you want to go into this function and you just want to say the value that you're going to pull. You're going to say out value, and then let's I need a slash between those. Let's just compare. Done. And let's compare that. So now if I open up this real object $, that's it. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items inside of a single object. That's it. So that's how much lighter it is. Now I'll take that out value out and hit it again. And now when I open it up, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items inside the first object. Now the first object has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 objects in it. Then we've got this string that's an array with 2 objects in it, full of all this. And so you can see the difference. It's a significant difference in terms of the amount of data that you're asking for every single slot. And so it's just good practice to know what you're asking for and ask what you want to know, instead of just being super general and asking for all of the information that there is all the time. You just waste a lot of network traffic and CPU on the JSON. Okay, so I'm done preaching about optimize your network traffic. Now, let's see. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, first I'm just going to tighten these up a little bit, because all of these were reads, or the REST or XML or oBIX way, HTTP way to think about it is these were all gets, but these were all to read data from Niagara. Now we're going to talk about writing it. And when we go to write it, that's when we're going to need to make use of our operation. So let's start with the numeric. And I'm going to deploy this, and I'm just going to take a look at that get numeric, because I need to know a couple of things. The first thing I need to know is what did I get back? I got back a real, so that's going to be what we're trying to change. So here is, and these are the operations. So let's take a look at them. We've got 5 operations here. I've got a emergency override, a emergency auto, an override, and a regular auto, and then the one that we're most likely to use is set. So you can use the get request to the actual point itself without specifying which slot you want, and then get back all this data, and then you can use that data to make the determination about, all right, well, if I want to change this value, which the value right now is 0, I can use any one of these operations, and I'm going to choose to use the set operation. So let's just put that in here in our operation. And we are going to need a slash set. And what else are we going to need? Okay, so instead of a get request in this case, we are going to make a post to this URL or URI that ends in set. And what are we going to set it to? Well, we're going to need a message payload. So let's set message.payload equal to, and this needs to be in XML format. So I'm going to use single quote, open angle bracket. And then we needed to know what kind of a data point is this? Well, it was a real. And then what are we going to change? We want to change the value. And then whatever we're going to change it to needs to be in quotes. So equal to double quotes. Let's just change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to need a slash, close the angle brackets. And that'll do it for our message payload. So then we can put a semicolon at the end. Okay, so that's how you format the information to send to a Niagara data point over oBIX from Node-RED. Let's test it. Deploy this. I'm going to close that, or clear out my debug window and hit this and see what happens. Okay, now I get my response, and there's my value, and we'll just pop over to Niagara 4, and there it is. You can see it. And back to Node-RED. And so that worked to post a numeric. All right, now let's just do that with these other data types. So just for space, I'm going to cram things together a little bit as we get ready to go through Boolean, enum, string, time. We really don't want to write to time now that I think about it, but we will want to check out that one shot. Okay, so we've figured out how to write a numeric. Now let's figure out how to write a Boolean. Post a Boolean. All right. Actually, in hindsight, if I just copy my Boolean, it'll have my ORD slot already in it. So I'm going to copy this one, copy, paste. And we'll just change this from get Boolean to post Boolean, and change our method to post. And what else? We're going to let's hang on for just a second here, because we'll go through this one more time. So I'm going to go back to my get Boolean and just take a look at it. I get back a bool, and when I drill into it, these are my operations. And I have a set operation. Boolean has some other operations too. What are they? It has, it's got its auto, its override off, its override on, and it's also got an emergency auto, an emergency off, and an emergency on. But for us, for right now, we're really just interested in this set. So that's going to be the operation that we're going to use, /set. And we are also going to need a payload. So what's our message payload? Value to post is going to be message.payload equals we need some XML open angle brackets bool val equals, and I believe it's off right now. Let's check. Yeah, it's false. So we'll switch it to true. True quotes / close brackets semicolon. Okay, now let's test and see, does that work? And there's our value. It's true. And I'll switch over to Niagara so you can see here Boolean writable is true. All right, we got 2 down. Now let's do the enum. Copy and paste this. And let's take a look at its operations available to us. So we've got our enum. The value is currently off. And what else do we got? We got our facets. Ref. What's in here? Proxy extension. Okay. And then in enum, we've got our array full of all the in slots. I was just a little curious about what we get in there. We've got an absolute time, but what we came here for were these operations. So let's see what they are. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Emergency override. Emergency auto. Override. Auto. And set. So it's the same as the numeric. We're going to use this set operation here. So let's go into operation and push set. And we're going to need to change our get to a post. Might as well change the name to post. And then we're going to put in our value to post, which is going to be our message payload being equal to single quotes, open angle brackets. In this case, we've got an enum value. Now, in this one, I'm going to switch over to Niagara 4 for a second here. In this one, we had, when we opened this up, we had 3 different ways of thinking about each one. We had the ordinal, and we had the tag, and we had the display. And you're going to need to use the tag to write to the enum value in this way. So if we want off, on, and auto, it's just off, on, or auto. They are capitalized with the first letter. But if we want well, because I use space in between the and the O, the space shows up with the $20 representation of a space character. So that's what we would have to use if we want okay, I'm gonna cancel out all this. I just wanted to show which we can't just send the number for the enum value. We can't, it's sufficient to say give me 2. You have to know that 2 means on. And so over here our enum value is going to be equal to, since right now I believe we're off. We'll just double check. Yeah, the value is off. We're going to change that value to on. And then we're going to do our slash and our close brackets. And there we go. So let's see if that works. Post an enum value. Deploy that's equal to on. Post. We get our enum object. And our value is now on. And we'll switch over to Niagara. And there it is. Now enum is on. Okay. And what else? Now let's do the string. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to copy the get and create a string post. Post string. Rename it. Change the method to post. And I bet you can guess that we're going to use the operation set by this point. And then set our value to post is going to be our message.payload, which is equal to string value. And we'll set it to Joy's got nuts. And maybe I shouldn't have a single quote inside my string. Slash close, single quotes, semicolon. So that my new string is Almond Joy's got nuts. Let's see if this posts. Done. Deploy. First we'll just check and see what the string is. I'll clear my debug window. So we'll go get the string and take a look at its value. And there it is, hello internet. And then we'll post the string. And then, oh, I got an error. What's my error? Ah, I see what my error is. There's no slash between set. So I'm going to go in here and put a slash. Done. Deploy. And let's try that again. Clear this out. My string is still equal to hello internet. And then I'll inject this. And now my string is equal to Almond Joy's got nuts. Okay, now I'm gonna skip time because we really are not gonna, we're not gonna set the Niagara 4 time in this way. There is a way to set the Niagara 4 time from Node-RED, but I don't want to condone writing to it like this. So I'm just gonna separate that out. And we're going to dig into this one shot. Because we use the same technique. So in this case, it's an object. And it has an operation called fire. So for our one shot, which is basically it receives a true as an in slot, and then it changes the output to true for a duration of time. So that we can catch it, let's change the output duration to 5 seconds. And then what I'll do is just illustrate what that does. So I'm going to action fire the one shot. So there I just sent the fire in. Now the out is true, but only for 5 seconds. And now it's off again. And in hindsight, maybe 5 seconds wasn't enough time for us to switch between Node-RED. Maybe it is, but I'm going to change it to 10 seconds. So now if it receives a fire, it'll turn the out slot to true, and it'll stay true, but only for 10 seconds, and then it'll go back to false. Okay, now I want to show you how would you press that fire button, how would you hit that fire action from Node-RED. So let's go back to Node-RED. So we've got our, let's do our one shot. Here we go. When we do a get on our one shot, we get our object and we see our operation, and our operation is fire. Now, let's copy that one shot paste it, and we'll change it to a post. And we're going to use the operation fire. It's not for fire. Okay, and in this one, since I'm going to use this action that doesn't require a variable, I'm not going to include a variable. Or I'm not going to include a message payload. Okay, and let's see what happens. So I inject this, I get operation back, I'll switch over to Niagara. Oh, I see, I made a mistake. So it didn't actually change the output, so that means that I forgot to change my method. My message method must be post. Okay, let's try that one more time. Deploy and inject, and then let's switch over to Niagara and take a look. Now there's my output is true for 10 seconds. And so that's how to get data in and out of Niagara 4 with oBIX through all the standard data types and even an action. I hope that you find this useful. Stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to show you how to pull not just 1 or 2 points from oBIX, but a whole lot of them with something called an oBIX watch. Thanks for watching. If you like these tutorials, then give us a subscribe, and see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.